Welcome to Mayhem CEDH, where questionable decks meet questionable pilots. So you may have already noticed that this isn't our usual weekly gameplay video. Well, funny story, somehow my thick aluminum stand I put the webcam on for recording bent. Don't worry, nothing a little percussive maintenance can't handle, and we'll have a new CAPENNA themed gameplay video out next week. But in the meantime, let's talk about 6 cards from new CAPENNA that I, the disembodied narrator, am excited to see in CEDH. And if you're in the Ames area, stick around to find out how you can get 10% off your next purchase. Quick disclaimer, these are in no particular order and are cards that I personally am excited for. I get it, Ledger Shredder is cool, but with the types of decks I play, it's just not something I'm that excited for. Also, I'll only be counting cards from Streets of New CAPENNA the set, not the Commander precons. With that being said, let's get started. Starting us off is a mono blue commander with some fun potential, Errant, Street Artist. For just 1 blue, Errant is a 0/3 legendary creature human rogue with flash, defender, and haste that reads, pay 1 and a blue and tap, copy target spell you control that wasn't cast. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, for those of you that don't know, Errant can go infinite with Dramatic Reversal. Well, kind of. You have to work with the whole wasn't cast thing. So, let's say you cast Dramatic Reversal and then copy it with something such as Twin Cast. Now you have a copyable Dramatic Reversal for Errant. With enough mana rocks and Errant, you can go infinite, create infinite mana, and then win with a combo. Now, is this a bit convoluted? Yes. Does it turn a 2-card combo, Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter, into a 3-card combo? Yes. Is your commander not an outlet? Well, yes, but the ability to turbo this out with one of your pieces being your 1-mana commander, as well as the other pieces being very searchable in mono blue, makes this commander a very interesting CEDH brew. Will you fold to Najeela? Probably, but that's not really the point of this list, now is it? Next up, we have Vivian on the hunt. For 4 and double green, Vivian is a legendary Vivian Planeswalker that enters with 4 loyalty and has 3 abilities. Her +2 reads, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a creature card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's mana value, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. Her +1 reads, mill 5 cards, then put any number of creature cards milled this way into your hand. And finally, her -1 reads, create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token. Alright, so I think we all know why this is getting CEDH attention. The +2 is a birthing pod activation. Now, the biggest reason not to play Vivian is the 6 mana cost, which I agree is a lot for this kind of ability. However, having another pod effect in decks that want it isn't the worst thing, even at 6 mana. And more importantly, this gives you a pod option that isn't stopped by Stony Silence effects or Cursed Totem effects. Will this become a staple in decks? Not necessarily, but I like giving pod decks more options to consider if they need more ways to pod targets away. Also, it does work through Bloodpod's own Stony Silence effects, so there's that too. Next up on the list, we have Patch Up. For 2 and a white, Patch Up is a sorcery that reads, return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yes, Proclamation of Rebirth exists, but the key word is total. Patch Up has a lot of utility in decks that need key creatures on the battlefield, and of course can combo. Just grab Sacred Guide and Thassa's Oracle, right? But I also like that this can just, say, grab an Eternal Witness for another use, or bring back Mana Dorks after a board wipe if you're low on mana. And of course, you can also just grab Dockside Extortionist, but, where's the fun in that? If you're a creature-based deck, this seems like a consideration if you need some kind of insurance policy against your meta for when your combo is being disrupted. Or just come up with a Buried Alive or Intuition pile like everyone else. Next up, we have Professional Facebreaker. For 2 and a red, Facebreaker is a 2/3 human warrior with menace that reads, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Sacrifice a treasure, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Yeah, so sometimes the card I'm excited for is a definite staple. There are very few red decks in CEDH that I see not slotting this in. This card does a lot. On its own, Facebreaker gives you a pseudo-Malcolm effect with evasion in the form of menace. This is the floor of this card. Remember, this card works like Tymna, so if you have 3 creatures each attacking an opponent, you get 3 treasures for your trouble. That's a very strong ramp effect. Now, let's talk about the second effect. So, the floor of this effect is that you can use your treasures lying around from combat that you have no use for to impulse draw. Not once per turn, instant speed. Alright, that's pretty good. Now remember that Dockside Extortionist exists. I know, we did it guys, we broke Dockside, but hear me out. Let's say you can present a Dockside loop to generate infinite treasures, but you don't have your win con. Professional Facebreaker allows you to use some of those infinite treasures to exile your deck until you find said win con. Yeah, so this card goes in most red decks, and I imagine decks like Magda are gonna love this. Alright, next up on this list is Cormela, Glamour Thief. For 1 in a blue, black, and red, Cormela is a 2/4 legendary creature vampire rogue with haste that reads, pay 1 and tap, add Grixis. Spend this mana only to cast instant and/or sorcery spells. When Cormela Glamour Thief dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So at worst, this is like netting you 2 mana for usual Grixis shenanigans like ad nauseam. At best, and this is technically cheating, this is a win con. Cormela combos with a card that isn't actually out yet, which is Saw in Half. Because of her death trigger, Saw in Half plus most any ritual effect, Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Desperate Ritual, etc., goes infinite with Cormela. Also, because of this, Cormela plus Demonic Tutor is a presentable win. So let me explain that, the best I can. With Cormela in play, you activate her for mana and cast Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor searches up Saw in Half. Cast Saw in Half on Cormela. Cormela dies and 2 death triggers hit the stack, 1 from the original Cormela dying and 1 from the Legend rule. Recast Demonic Tutor, finding your ritual, cast your ritual to add mana, cast Saw in Half on the Cormela copy, and now you have a loop of returning Saw in Half and the ritual to your hand, and the ability to fully recast with the Cormela left over from Saw in Half. Now obviously this requires a bit of mana for that, but keep in mind that you can also just win off Saw in Half and a ritual either in your hand or in your graveyard. And of course, like I said before, you can also just go ad nauseum with her as well. Technically cheating, but we know Saw in Half is coming eventually. For those of you in the Ames area who stuck around, come to Mayhem Comics and Ames this week and ask for the YouTube discount. You'll be asked the question, what was the final card that was talked about? Answer correctly and get 10% off your purchase. And finally, the last card I want to talk about is Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer. For X, red, green, white, Rocco is a 3/1 legendary creature elf druid that reads, when Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Horde of Calling is in the command zone now, and this is a very simple and powerful effect. One of my favorite things about new CAPENNA, other than the art and setting, is giving us more single commanders in neglected color combinations. Grixis got a lot of love with Cormela, Evelyn, and Angelo as potential CEDH options, but in my opinion, Rocco is the best Naya single commander we've seen in a long time. I could gush about this card all day, but let's get to why I'm excited about it. It's a Naya commander, and you don't have to build stacks. Now, I'm not going to stop you from running stacks, but it's not my favorite archetype in CEDH, and I feel that Naya gets pigeonholed into it so often. With Rocco, I get to play Naya Food Chain with the backup of a Dockside Extortionist loop. And the thing with Rocco is that it can grab pieces of combos that you're missing. For example, Rocco can grab Dockside if you only have a meal, or vice versa, or it can also grab Temur Sabertooth. Rocco can grab Eternal Scourge or Squee if you have Food Chain out, and Rocco can also just grab a utility creature or Toski if you just need to draw some cards. And Rocco serves as the setup and payoff for Food Chain and Dockside loops, being able to be repeatedly cast to find all the creatures in your deck. So my point with all this is, I will be proxying up a Rocco deck and playing it extensively. It's a fun, powerful commander. And that'll conclude the 6 new CAPENNA cards that I'm excited for in CEDH. Thank you so much for watching, be sure to subscribe to catch future videos, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.